This conference will now be recorded.
Just do it, just do it. Well, and the reason is because there's always a concern that if you go too far, if you don't do something exactly right, you turn around and you get sued. But all you're really trying to do is clean up the place. But you might get sued and you might face all kinds of liability. So that hampers everybody, right? Everybody tiptoes around everything. And property rights are important. I'm very important. I'm not saying they're not. But the other process that sometimes I've used in the past is you just maybe go, you still have to do the notice and stuff, but you just go straight to court. You go to court, and sometimes there's a district court cases instead of magistrate court cases. Be that as it may. If you go through that judicial process, there are timelines where you have to have a hearing within so many days, so many days, so many days. The key is, I don't know that the key, and some of the stuff I may have to adjust in my head. Some of the stuff is just what I'm putting together the last few days. But the key is sometimes maybe when you go into court, you don't necessarily just ask for the fine. At the same time, you're saying, okay, here's what we got to do. Judge, I don't really care about the fine that much. I mean, I do, but probably never going to collect it. What I really want is an order to abate the nuisance. I really want, here, Judge, I got this piece of paper for you. It's not that simple, but you know what I mean. I want you to approve it. That's just saying, okay, yep, go in there and clean it up. And at the end of that process, I'm not going to say, I mean, somebody can sue you. Somebody can sue me for running over their kid this morning, even though I didn't hit anybody, right? I mean, so I can't guarantee nobody's ever going to sue you. You just try to minimize any chance of success. So if we follow a process like that, I'm hoping over a period of time, it would help alleviate the problem sooner. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Well, we've done everything you've said. It took a long time, but we cleaned it up and he's filled it back up.
I know he has.
Is there a resolution to that?
Well, the resolution I know, and I did put this question out to some people yesterday, and we'll see what they say. I think I know what the answer is. But sometimes I miss something. Sometimes people know things I don't. So we'll see. What I'm familiar with is chapter 657A of the code, which is what allows the county or a city to petition for title to property, which a lot of times is nuisance property, right? That's what we've done in this Kephart case. Now, that's been pending a while. I mean, and so you're thinking, oh, you're talking about quick results, Murphy. This doesn't seem to be it. Well, yeah, under that 657A, there's nothing particularly quick about it, but it seems to me that is kind of the final line in the process where you say, okay, again, I respect property rights. I'm a property rights guy. I mean, as much as anybody, right? I mean, but so I'm not the kind of guy that says, let's go in and take people's property. I don't mean that. But like there does come a point when the property is so derelict, it's not being taken care of. It's maybe a hazard, it's a health hazard, it's a safety hazard, that sometimes maybe there's no choice other than for the county to take control of that property and clean it up. That's what that chapter 657A that does. That's kind of the end result. So I know what I'm saying here probably isn't any, the steps probably are not any different than what we've been talking about in the past. It's just maybe just, as Barney Fife used to say, just nip it in the bud sooner or take action sooner. And consistently, and I'm a checklist guy. I mean, I'm a process guy. Sometimes I think it's good. Sometimes I think it's probably bad, right? Sometimes I can get glued to a process if I say, no, this is what we do and this is what we're going to do. I'm not a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. So a lot of times what I do is I try to put together a process. And, and to you, you're saying, well, Murphy, that doesn't sound like a process a whole lot different from what we've been doing. And it may not necessarily be But if I get it, if we all get it in place and do it consistently, quickly, I think it'll lead to results. I'm really not familiar with any other way to approach it. But I am, like I said, I put out, with other county attorneys, other city attorneys, and they're very nice, they're very cooperative, very helpful. It's just that, sometimes their answer is, you're doing what you can do, you just gotta stay at it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna keep looking. Like, I don't claim now if somebody were to say, Murphy, can you get up and teach a class on nuisance? I would say, you know what? I think maybe you better let somebody else do that. I'm still trying to maybe figure everything out myself. So, but I am doing it.
Okay.
We can ask for.
So anyway, I probably rambled on longer than you thought, but anyway, I just like to at least, if I bring something up, I like to at least follow up so people know I'm not just.
It's not an easy process.
No,
Not easy.
no. I just wish that the public would have heard from the start everything. Being that the owl started the meeting
Yeah.
halfway through your.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, all right.
All right. Well, anyway.
Thank you.
Item 4, sheriff update.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Not a lot, just bring you up to speed a little bit on what's going on in Riceville. They have 5 applications for a city policeman in that process. The application portion of that will close on, I think, this coming Friday. So I talked to the mayor this week. We're going to help them with testing. That'll be somewhere around June 11th. They'll do some additional testing for their applicants. And then I guess, essentially they'll have to select from those that pass all that testing and interviews. It sounds like the mayor and city council would be interested in our pickup if county department is not. So between now and July 1st, if you bump into department heads, ask them about it. If there is no interest, I think Riceville would be interested. So just keep that in mind too as we move forward and get closer to July 1st. We will replace that truck, but anytime after that, I'd like to move it on so it doesn't get damaged sitting in the back or something, and then that deal doesn't go through. So anyway, that's really all I have. The marathon in Riceville over the weekend went well. I think their numbers were down, but overall it went well anyway. So I think they were happy with that. We had a couple reserves out helping with that. So otherwise it's business as usual over there. So if you have any questions or anybody else does, be happy to answer.
So maybe they won't need your services from July on.
They will, because the hiring process is just a small step. Then their applicant will have to do 16 weeks at the academy.
Oh, okay, these are people that haven't been through the.
And then there'll be a kind of a training process for him or her to get familiar with actually, I mean, the real training and real education begins when they get in the police car and go out on the street.
Yep. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it'll be the December 31st before that person is.
Which is
ready to
fine,
roll.
yeah.
Yeah, and we'll help them out. So, okay,
Thank you.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Item.
I just brought, when I was commenting earlier about the pickup of the junk day, I wasn't, in case somebody out there, I wasn't commenting on complaining about the junk being out around because, I like my stuff picked up too. I think that's a great service city. I mean, I put stuff out there to be picked. So I wasn't, in case somebody thinks, well, wait a minute, I put my stuff out there. Murphy, don't pick on it. It's like, no, I wasn't talking about that at all. What was going through my mind is sometimes I wonder, because you also see people coming around picking it up, and I wonder how much of that stuff ends up somewhere in a junkyard. So that I just thought, somebody could think that maybe I'm saying, wait a minute, he's lumping me in there because I got stuff out of the curtain. It's like, no, I didn't mean that at all. I put stuff out there too. So.
Did you find any treasures to bring home?
No.
My worry is that it's going to go east and become another tire pile that's already there.
That's
Yeah.
like.
All right, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Item 5, department heads discussion.
Got a few things.
A few things.
So last week we talked about the election, the pay. I did not add it to the agenda since it's in my budget. You guys already approved the budget. I don't need to bring it back unless it's above. That's something that we would potentially have to do in next budget year. And then there's stop the bleed training this week. If employees need to still sign up, that is in our office. It's this Thursday and Friday. No, I didn't know if now would be a time to bring it up or when Rich comes. I know he's been trying to schedule his Worth County meeting or with them. We can give him maybe dates that don't work and then it makes it easier. I don't really know. And then I know there was questions on the budget that got posted in the paper. It shows a negative, and the reason it shows a negative, we have approved $2 million that was not budgeted for. So if it's not in your budget, the easiest way to say it is you don't spend it. When it's that large money, you can't do it. You have to put it in your budget. So I will work on finding with department heads expense lines that we can budget backwards with or find revenue somehow to make that positive. But we have money, but if it's not in your budget, that's how you get to that negative number. You guys have questions on that?
That's the key statement. We have money.
We have money, but we will be in trouble if it's negative. the way that it is.
But it's not,
That is not.
but it's not negative.
The budget is negative. Our physical money is not negative, but our budget is negative, and so you'll get in trouble for your budget being negative.
So will there be an amendment soon then?
Well, so I sent the amendment out
What's,
with
we
those, yes,
we
with
did.
those numbers.
think it works.
And so that's where it has the negative numbers. So I know Renee was already starting to work on it to figure out, try to make that gap smaller, but
That would
That's-
mean that our department heads should be responsible for maintaining or staying within their budget.
yes. I know things come up, I know that's a thing, but if, as much as possible that you stay within your budget, those random things that come up makes it more doable then, because then it's a smaller number. So there's that. And then I just wanted to clarify from last week, since it's, I feel like going around the county, our office sent emails about insurance. Some employees were not aware of that. I'm sorry, that is you that
That's
talked
about
to.
the insurance meeting.
The insurance meeting, the open enrollment, that is, we did not want anyone to come. It was just that employees were not aware of it. So I apologize. There's ways that you can watch a YouTube video now, but they are due Friday.
And that also should have been up to department heads to make sure that their.
Yeah, it's technically,
employees
and
knew
it,
this
I wouldn't
time.
even say department heads. The employee had the choice if they wanted to come or not come. And that's, so,
We were one department that messed up. We didn't see the date until it was in the memo on Monday and the meeting was Wednesday. And we saw it late. So we had some guys that wanted to make changes. I set up a meeting yesterday morning for the YouTube video. They did it in the office yesterday in the YouTube video, and I think almost everybody left because they didn't want to make changes. So there were only a handful of people in the office that actually watched it. So, but I know there was discussions with emails that came out as to polling whether we should have it in person or whatever else, but from there on, the only notice that I saw in emails was that Monday before the Wednesday of the meeting, and we missed it.
Yeah.
So,
they were the only one.
but
Yeah.
we took care of it too. We set up a meeting, they came and watched the video, and they've got their information now. So, I mean, I think, I don't know how many have turned it in yet, but
I don't check with Lindsay. I know quite a few have been in.
there was some miscommunication in my department as to,
You're not the only one.
so anyway.
That's- yeah.
I think we've got it taken care of. They've got their information anyway, and they'll get it turned in.
That's all I got.
So on the precincts, are you gonna change the, you said it's in your budget.
Well, I'll see.
You'll see.
If I have to cut back money in my budget to help in a little bit for the big deficit, then I will. So I cannot
I
give
just,
you an answer right now.
in case I get a question.
Right now, I'm gonna probably stick with the $10 unless I can come up with money elsewhere for. It's the best I can do.
On that budget thing though, since my budget is kind of completely goofy anyway.
Yep.
That's not necessarily applying to me because we've amended. I know we had the
So-
original budget and then we amended for,
So all the numbers get put together. So yours is part of it, but it's everyone's. So it's all funds. that add up to it.
See, and I always just pay attention to the secondary road fund, which
Yeah.
is almost completely,
And there's money in there, and
Yeah.
so that's the confusing part for people, is there's money in those accounts. But when we don't put our budget saying, oh, and which is gonna be hard with all the increase of everything this next year especially, but we have to have revenues to offset it. That's our biggest problem.
see, and I've got carryover balances that offset that. Plus, I think, I'm trying to remember if I did adjust the revenues because the carryover balances changed from the year before.
Yeah,
And so
And
that
so-
show, but you don't see that carryover balance in the budget sheets like I do when I do, because I've got the DOT one that I follow and the county one that I follow. And they're looking at different things. The DOT one is always looking at carryover balances from the previous year, then revenues. The county one, I don't know. I've always requested to get the revenue sheet, but I don't think in the past it was always, tell me what you're spending, but nobody would know what the revenues are until they came in. So I always try to budget both the same, because then I know that I have this amount of money yet that's unspent from the previous fiscal year, that if something comes up, I've got the money there to amend if I need to.
Mhm.
And so I just want to make sure that I'm not,
So it's one of those things that at the end, if you know, like your carryover number, if there's ever, I don't know how you want to say, 200,000 you're not going to spend in one line item, it's not going to happen until next year. Then we can amend the budget down 200,000 this year and then add it next year to 200,000.
and I,
How it equals out.
and that's different for you because every other department comes out of the general fund and mine doesn't. I
Yeah,
get property
they're
tax.
all over the place.
So mine is a little different and goofy, so it's probably hard to track a little bit more, and that's why it's
Yeah.
probably difficult, because I know that in the past, it was like, you get the rock run out, and, well, here's $1 million bill in July, I'm like, I don't have money for it, so my budget tells me I have money for it, and my carryover balance tells me I have money in it, so where's the money at?
Yeah.
If the money's there, so it's, I don't know, probably a lot of that money is secondary road money the secondary road fund that's in there that shows maybe some of that positive balance, but
Yours,
I don't know how that works with your
Yeah.
budgeting system, but
it's kind of messy.
so.
We'll see. We'll contact department heads if we find money that they maybe won't be spending. And go from there, I don't know.
Okay. Anything else on department head discussion? Hearing none. Move on to county engineer update.
Morning. The Toterville project started Monday, so we've got that north end closed up with the work. And we did have a pre-con last week, and we went out and actually discussed some things where we extended the project a little further north. And out there, we decided it was probably best. It was a 7-inch concrete design for the whole thing, but in front of the elevator, I think we wanted to bump it up, get a little bit more strength. So we're gonna go 8 inches with dowels for that stretch, because there's gonna be a lot of traffic back and forth on it. And so we changed the grading a little bit to where we're gonna taper out and not core out. We have to core out by the tracks because we gotta match that existing grade at the tracks. But after that, we're gonna try to taper back up and then end up on top of that old road bed, because that's hard. No sense in taking out a good base. So we're gonna do that at that end. So there's gonna be some adjustments, change orders, probably gonna cost a little bit more money to add the 8 inches with the dowels, but in the long run, we won't end up with something like up on Ethanol Road where the joints have faulted and we get a rough pavement. So that's the Toterville project. We got detour and stuff set up, so they're starting to work there. Balsam, supposedly the dirt contractor is supposed to be in this week. Lodge is supposed to be in there doing some work, but with rain and everything else, I don't know if their schedule's really that tight yet. So that's there. We will be sending out the rock quote this week. I'm gonna ask for 3 different numbers. One is our 1.125" number in the southeast corner. One will be our 33 and 34 gradation, the normal gradation we use in the other part of the county, and then an additional inch screen quote for the rest of the county other than the southeast corner. So we'll get those numbers back within a couple weeks. If I understood, that's what you guys wanted.
You will determine where the rock goes,
For
county.
which,
We have 3 different rocks.
well,
You make the determination.
my understanding was we're gonna leave the southeast corner at 1.125", and then you guys wanted to evaluate the rest of the county, whether we do the inch screen or we do the other gradation, either or we try, if are we gonna try to combine or I don't, it gets kind of messy if we're gonna run We know the southeast corner will be 1.125 inches. That's kind of out of the picture, but are we gonna start mixing and matching the other gradations? That's gonna get confusing and everything else for everything else. So it's either, to me, it's either be easier if it's all or nothing.
Well, to me, you're the county engineer and you're the one that decides what should be put down on the roads and what we do.
Appreciate that.
Rather than the board of supervisors picking and choosing,
Well,
this mile, this mile, this mile, this mile. You're the one that we pay to do that.
well, if that's the case, then I don't want to use that inch screen, but you guys want to use it, so we're gonna try to put it there, and I guess I'll determine where it goes then. So that's that, and then our Kirkwood project is up for bids in May. I'm a little nervous about the costs, because the oil's getting more expensive. We did a project in Worth County where, and I don't think it maybe told this last week or not, but the oil we used on that project was stuff that was, the contractor actually had a quote from the previous year, so we got it pretty cheap. But the oil we used over there, kind of a highly polymerized oil, but it went up to over $1,000 a ton. So that means the other oils are gonna be a lot higher too. So we'll just see how that bid comes out and go from there.
Wasn't that like 600 or something before?
Yeah. I can't remember what our bid was in Worth County. It was a little higher than that, but they tell me it's because they had their prices locked in last year, they were still able to use it, but $1,000 a ton. Yeah, and the oils, you know, I don't know, 5 years ago or better, when the oil prices were normal, the normal oils were $400, $500 a ton, and now they're probably pushing $600-700 a ton. It's a lot. So, anyway, that's what I've got for you this morning.
Anybody have any questions for Rich?
Well, as Rachel said, we need to figure out.
Yeah, I sent out an email.
Oh, the meeting, okay.
Yeah, sometime we need to figure that out.
Yeah. I know.
To me, it just seems like that Tuesday, both boards are scheduled for a board meeting. I don't know how your guys' other meetings go. I know that Worth County responded and they said they had another meeting in the afternoon. I don't know where that's at, it's in Forest City, but if that day works, I'll try to schedule something for during that day on the 31st.
What time would you do that?
Well, it all depends on what everybody's schedule is like. They've got to be, I think they've got to be at a Forest City meeting by 1:30. I don't know how quick the morning meetings are going to go for you guys. So do you try to squeeze it in before, or you try to
We could make it, yeah.
so
Somewhat realistic, you know. Have that meeting up at Carpenter at 10:30 or so.
this has been the most difficult meeting to schedule I've ever had.
The budget amendment is next Tuesday. That's a public hearing here.
On the 31st though.
Oh, I thought you said, I thought we were talking 17th.
The 31st, because that's the day where everybody's going to have, Memorial or
That's right.
Memorial.
I'm thinking
Memorial Day, yeah.
See what you got.
Correct. Because then both boards are actually scheduled to be at their courthouses, and we can say, okay, let's pick up and meet here.
Wrong date. Sorry.
If it works. I mean,
You know,
otherwise, the contract is really,
we can always start our meeting here that day at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I should say 8 o'clock, and then try and be at Carpenter at 10:30.
whichever works. I mean, I think that even if you get that early, we can make that work. It's just, the contract's written the same as it has been. So, I mean, it's not other than an extension. It's just same verbiage. So anyway,
Or wherever you wanted to meet at, where would you want?
it just seems like that's the easiest place because it's halfway between both counties. It's right on the county line and it seems to work the best, but
I'm free. You name the time, I'll be there.
all right.
Yep, we'll be there.
All right, then
We'll make it work.
we'll make that day work then.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Rick.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.
I guess it's 9 a.m. and it's discussion and possible action on Heartland renewal presentation.
Yes, I'm the outgoing Judy and the incoming Judy is not here yet.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize. I can start to go through the renewal with you, but I kind of don't want to step on new Judy's toes.
Okay,
So when I
we
called
can wait then.
10 minutes ago, she said she was 5 minutes out.
Okay.
Um,
All right,
So I apologize.
that's fine. We'll go on to items of note, meetings attended.
Had a NICOG meeting last night and went through a number of things. One of them is 4 grants that the state's offering in order to do things around the state of Iowa's outdoor recreational fund and different things. I'm not going to get into all of them. It's just the state of Iowa realizes that they need to do things to make things happen in the state, and they're offering to provide some money to try to make that happen. That was it.
I didn't have a meeting.
Well, I went to the county social service meeting last week, and I don't know, the number one problem they come up with is there's no like inpatient treatment for mental health in the area. And that's a problem everywhere. We've been having a problem getting people into that field because of just the nature of the beast, I guess. So anyway, that was one meeting I had.
I just had a Heartland insurance meeting. They'll be talking about our premiums are going up along with everybody else's. And we received a Mitchell County General Safety Award for 2020 to 2021, which will go back with the rest of them.
Well, I went to the Valiant Tree Planting. They have a product that's 50 years old, and so they bought 50 trees to plant around Osage. Went to that. We had a MCDC meeting, hired a assistant director, she's going to intern as director, do both. So we have somebody in the office. And then attended a community collaboration meeting last week, which was pretty much mental health and kind of piggybacked on what Mike was talking. So that's it.
Can you say who you hired, or is that in it?
Yeah,
I just.
Tracy Sharper.
Okay. Moving on, manure management plan updates.
There's one for Blong South Finisher Farm, 4602 Shadow Avenue, Stacyville.
That was it?
Yep.
Okay, she must not be here yet, so guess we're down to public comments. Anybody in the public have anything to say?
I have a question for Keith, Mayor of St. Ansgar. So I saw on the agenda for city council meeting last night, had something to do with tip rebate for a business in town, or what was that about?
That was for Randy Gonerman, his wife. They run 2 businesses out of a building that they have. She runs a local floral shop, and he has a custom cabinet making business, does some really fantastic work. Anyway, he called me, and for 10 years, he's been thinking about adding on to the building. So he was proposing $100,000 addition to put more machinery in and improve his business. But building costs as they are, he was concerned about that. And he wanted to know if the city was still doing incentives to help them remodel and do things like that. Well, it turns out he was eligible for a remodeling abatement program, and he's also eligible for TIP. So we recommended that we gave him the forms he needed, recommended he come down and talk to the auditor and see which would be most advantageous for him. So he came back to us with requests for TIP abatement, which is great. Both abatement and TIP work for us because it's like a time payment. You buy a house, you go get a loan, and you pay time on it. With abatement and TIP, we're extending money. We're not extending any money The asset has to be there before you can start collecting taxes. That is the easiest way for our community to help people that want to develop in St. Ansgar. And they are great business people. They've been a real asset to the community, so we were more than happy to give them to them. That's all.
All right. I go to Osage City Council meetings and they do rebates for industries within the city limits also, and they do a payment for, last week, somebody wanted to build some houses and they worked with the contractor in order to try to do that. So, and I know St. Ansgar, or Statesville has some urban renewal, but I'm not really sure what all they do. I don't go to their city council meetings, but I guess my point
Works best for us for like residentials where they're gonna do a remodel and they don't, they're not eligible for the TIP program. That's why we offer the abatement as well.
Well, I'm glad the cities and the county are taking the lead in regards to trying to get people to build things in the county and getting industry here. Somebody has to do it, so I'm glad. I want to thank the cities for doing that.
And Randy was very thankful that it was there. Said, well, the way prices are, I probably really shouldn't be doing it, but I've wanted to do it for 10 years and if I don't do it now. So it's a good boost for him to, incentive for him to build now, even though costs are high.
Okay. And it just said on the agenda, tip rebate, and so I wasn't sure what all was going on with that, so thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we'll move back to item 7, discussion action on Heartland renewal presentation.
Yes, hello, I'm Judy Hammaker. I apologize, I got behind some traffic there. So anyway, I am the new administrator for Heartland Insurance Risk Pool. Judy Funk is training me throughout this process. So I will go ahead and give you your packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I will go over this with you, and then Judy may have some things to add as she's training me through this, just to make sure I don't miss anything when I'm going over your renewal with you. If you see the letter, this does reflect that the renewal estimate, and then it tells you what your premium credit is there. So your premium credit is the $27,355. And then if we go ahead and go to the renewal comparisons, you can see, we'll go ahead and start with the property insurance. That is up just slightly. Now we did, when we were doing the pre-renewal, we did put in there approximately a 15% increase for you, just thinking that you would increase your property values, reeval property values. So I don't know if you had, it doesn't look like you had any significant changes in your property values. Did you go over your schedules and make any increases? Oh, did you have this also? Judy has this. This kind of goes through what you have currently have your buildings valued at. And then this was when Gallagher Bassett, they did,
Thank you.
So this is all like replacement cost.
right. So if you look at, you can see, and the last time that you updated, for instance, your courthouse, you had that valued at $8,500,000. That was last updated in 2015. And so what we've had, Gallagher Bassett was the company that was previously valuing your buildings. And they came out, I believe it was about 10 years ago, and actually physically came out. And then since then, they've been doing desk reviews where they have a computer program that they input, locations and things and get the values increased through their desk reviews. And this is common in the industry that's how they do it. Now this year, Heartland has contracted with CBiz, and they've been going around to the counties. And I don't know if they've been here. Have they been here, Mark? Okay, so they're going around, and then in late September, October, you should have the actual report from them that gives you what their current opinion is on the values. They may have something come out preliminary, but the official report won't be until the end of September and October. So you can certainly take a look at these values now, see if there's anything that needs to be updated or increased in value. If you want to wait until you get those reports, that's also, but I just want to bring to your attention that that is something that you should definitely take a look at, just given the fact with storms and everything, we want to make sure that you're adequately insured on that. So the property, we have had a large increase on that due to the experience in the market. That you don't see that increase, that's through Heartland. You have your rates that are set through Heartland, and that's what your premium is based on. But there has been an increase in the property insurance. So, and same inland marine is up a little bit. Equipment breakdown, which is formerly known as your boiler and machinery, that's up slightly also. Errors and emissions, that's fairly consistent there. Law enforcement, general liability, that did go up 5%. Now, what we do with the general liability, we take the last 6 years and we average those. We drop out the highest and the lowest of the experience for the liability for you, and then we drop out the highest and the lowest, and then we average that. So that's where we get, and it's capped at 5%. So you cannot be given more than a 5% increase or less, or it can't decrease more than 5%. So it's capped at that 5%. And that's something that has been through the Heartland Insurance Risk Pool has made that decision on that. Automobile liability is up slightly. Automobile physical damage up slightly also. Crime is consistent there, no change. That crime, it covers, say for instance, if you, like your treasurer has petty cash in their office and someone would come in and steal that money, if somehow that's what the crime coverage is for. And then if you go on down to your workers' compensation, that's just up slightly. And then we do have the premium for additional limits. You did increase your liability limit to 5 million, and that was back in 21-22 policy year. And then special vehicle equipment, that's based on your number of vehicles with special equipment, and that includes radios and things like that in your vehicles. And then cyber liability, we do not yet have, that's just an estimate there, we do not yet have the cyber quote from Gallagher, from the broker. They are still waiting on getting that. So we're hopeful that that will come in late this month, early June, and then we'll have to have a Zoom meeting with the Heartland board to discuss what that cyber quote comes in at. So right now, that's what we have. So we will have to wait and see on that. Property values, you can see and that corresponds with that. Your law enforcement, that's 26, and then last year it was 25.75, and that's based on, and that's not actually number of employees, it's based on hours that they work and how that's calculated. There's a formula that calculates that out for your law enforcement. And then your payroll was up a little bit. Your mod factor is 0.71 this year, and it was 7.7 last year, so, which is good, very good. So, and then if you go to your next page, that shows you what your premiums are less the premium credit. So the net premium for you then is $254,241. And then I can, does anyone have any questions on that? I'll go through some more information here, and then if you have any questions, you can certainly ask me. We have if you go to the graph page, this is for your liability. And this shows you, this gives you the example of where we're talking about averaging, where we drop out the low and the high, and then we average that to get what your premium, what we're using for that. So with regard to your losses. And then the next documents are your actual schedule. So again, we have the property schedule. You can look through that, and we will be getting updated information from CBiz that will have the actual addresses. If everything on your schedule doesn't have the actual addresses, CBiz will be updating that with detailed addresses and things. So, but again, this is something, if you look through now and you want to make any changes, those can be sent to Jennifer Shonda, and she'll get that updated for you. And again, with your inland marine, same thing. If there's any changes or additions, you can get those into her for the schedule by May 31st. And again, you'll just, think about, do you have these vehicles? Do you have everything valued properly, given the cost of, buying used equipment at this point, used vehicles, used equipment, and those costs are sometimes as high as the new or close to a new one. And then if you go to your workers' compensation, this gives you what your estimated payroll is. And we have that broken out by job classification, and then your payroll, and then the rates that correspond with each of those job classifications. So those rates for the work comp, that is put out by the state of Iowa. So those are rates that are given to us by the state. So we calculate your estimated payroll against that, multiply times that rate, and that gives you what your estimated premium is. And then at the bottom, you'll see where it says annual Iowa gross premium. That's what the gross premium would be. Then we utilize your mod factor, which is 0.71, so that your mod factor, you have a good experience rating on that. So that decreases, and that's at the bottom of the page on the work comp. That decreases your premium in addition to a premium discount, a pool discount, and a safety discount. So where your annual Iowa gross premium, where that would have been initially was $158,000, but with your good experience for your work comp, for your mod factor, and the other discounts, that brings your premium down to $78,879.
Is that a good safety discount percentage?
Yeah, and that's standard when you're taking part in all the safety things. Nathan Berry comes out and does all the safety training and things. So you're taking part in all of that. So that's standard for what we're giving who are partaking in the necessary safety.
Okay.
And then I have your mod factor, your mod calculation in here, your workers' compensation rate, and this goes through, it looks at your job classifications, and then rates, and then based on your payroll and your expected losses. And we have the calculation there. And then at the bottom, you'll see where under 15, that's where your mod factor is. And this is a program using actuarial calculations in order to arrive at that. And then we do have the next page is a mod snapshot, and that gives you a look at what your premium is, your current, your mod is the 0.71. If your losses were average, that would be the next one over. And then at the minimum would be the 109,081. You can look at the following graph and see that what your actual losses are and what the expected losses are. So you're down significantly from, with what the actual losses were as compared to expected. So we take the, expected losses, and then that's weighted, and then with your current mod. So. And then we have the mod factor history. And you can see on that, going back to 16, 17, you were at 0.92. You did have a couple years there. 18, 19, 19, 20, you were at 105. Now you're then down to 0.9. And now you've been steady for these past 2 years, 0.7, 0.71. So the work comp is looking good for you on that. So, and we have then the coverage summaries, and this gives you the Heartland, the coverage summary, this indicating that your limits are 5 million. And this just gives you the information about what you have for the coverage. And then there's also the equipment breakdown coverage summary following that. And that gives you, what exposures fall with under that type of coverage. And that gives you the information about the coverages that you have. And we will have, when we do get the cyber quote, we will get a cyber coverage information sheet for you also. So that is that information. Do you have any questions for me on that? And possibly, Julie, do you have anything to add?
No, just want to really, really stress for you to look at your property values. You were real fortunate in 2020, you didn't get hit with the derecho, and Tama County won the prize on that one. And we've had some fires, we've had some other storms, so the last 5 to 10 years on a property has been pretty tough. So the renewal was not real pleasing, but that's why you're in a pool, because you want to stay away from the ups and downs of the regular marketplace. And the surplus that you have right now allows the board to make the decisions that they did on the premium credit. And then it insulates you, it insulates the county from watching those market swings go back and forth. But cannot stress enough, look at your properties, because we've run across it too many times where, especially with the derecho and a couple of other windstorms, Benton had one not too long ago again, that the values just weren't where they should be, and they're looking at coming up with a lot of money to replace the building. So just don't let those get too far away, because you are in replacement costs, but it also depends on the scheduled value they have in the schedule. So be real careful with that. And then just on the work comp, kudos to your department heads for working really hard to keep this where it is. You guys are kind of the shining star out of Heartland when it comes to the mod factors and how well you look in that. And as Judy was pointing out in the mod breakdown and the little picture that has the green, those numbers are a little deceiving because those are gross numbers. Before that, about 30% comes out from Heartland. So your controllable mod there, where you are and where your minimum is, this graph shows that it's about $3,100. In actuality, we have to take 30% off that because we're giving you the premium discounts. So your controllable mod is, $2,000 possibly. So again, kudos to your department heads for working so hard with their employees to keeping these losses down and frequency down. We really appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions?
I know we got a claim on the Mitchell Dam, and you're not gonna cover it anymore. You're covering it this time, but from now on, because it's age,
Right.
it's not gonna be covered again, so. Just want to bring that attention that if it happens again, it's probably on our time.
I seen it on here somewhere.
And when I went around with that guy, we had 27 properties we looked at, and we ended up with 31.
31, okay.
So there's some on there that weren't on it, and they were $50,000 and higher buildings.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that's what they're looking at with the 50,000. And then there were some maybe on your schedule, like maybe if you had them valued at 40,000 at that point, where now at this point, they're probably 50,000 or more dollar value. So yes, and that's kind of what they were gonna go around to all of the counties, and if there are additional buildings, make sure that they do give us, you know, the value of those. So that way you'll be current and up to date on everything based on today's situation and what we would anticipate for those replacement costs, so.
It has Interstate Park Powerhouse here listed, but
that's just the powerhouse.
just the building.
And that would be the building, yes.
So the dam is what you're talking about.
It's Lieber John's redoing the dam gate. And,
So that won't be covered anymore? Even though it's rebuilt, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's rebuilt. So it's the old equipment older than 50 years. That's the issue with the new renewal. I think, you know, ask Gallagher to work with conservation because the Heartland and due to Genesis, the reinsurer has an exclusion for power generation. So that's why that activity is not covered, hasn't been covered. And conservation has had a property policy out there with a very limited scope on it. So we've asked Gallagher to work with him possibly to see if they can find a broad coverage for that. But he's known about that for a long time. In this case, we were just really fortunate because originally the equipment breakdown carrier originally said they wouldn't cover it. So, you know, you pitch a little fit and sometimes you can get to the right people and you can get it covered. So we were really glad we did. But, you know, I've been doing this 21 years with Heartland. This is the second claim we've had on this. The other one was some vaccinations, public health loss because of a lightning storm, which was probably like 2003 here in Mitchell County, and then this claim. So, you know, we paid premium all those years. I'm glad we could get it covered. But it is an activity that is not covered by.
So the powerhouse building is still covered.
Right.
But it says contents, 5,000,
It could be desks, could be computers.
but not the actual generating part of it, huh?
Is that just the equipment? Is there liability? Something happens? I mean,
Well, that would-
liability coverage to the dam part or?
Well, and conservation's known that for years and years and years and years, that activity is not covered
Even the liability issue of, okay.
because of the exclusions. And we've had that discussion many times with prior conservation director and
They should have a liability coverage.
What do you think of something? Yeah, absolutely.
And I have a meeting with them tonight, I can bring that up to them.
yeah, and again, I'm not sure how it's going between Gallagher and them. Have you heard anything? Jim?
No, I haven't, but that's something, if he has not spoke with Jennifer recently on that, you can certainly have him contact me directly, and then I will follow up with Jennifer and make sure that she gets in contact with him. So to keep that moving, if it isn't already moving at this
We
point.
need liability if nothing else, you know?
Yeah.
If we had a dam failure, would we be liable for issues down the river?
Possible. I mean, you're not automatic. I mean, getting this off the top of my head.
During a massive flood, if the dam was to go out, even though it would be during a big flood rain event, would we still be?
And not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't think there's any strict liability there. I mean, I think there would have to be some kind of negligence right on that part of the county. Although I tell my private clients this all the time, I don't mess around with this. I mean, I don't skimp on insurance. I like to make sure I'm covered. So, you're talking about making sure you get liability, and if there's a way to do that, I would damn well make sure you do it.
Because this liability doesn't cover all the county property then, liability.
Right, so you slip and fall on any of the buildings, that's covered. It's the activity though of the power generation that's not covered. You have a conservation property and there's a well you don't know about, some kids fall in it, your liability could address it. Okay, granted, we can't always say will, because we don't know what kind of allegations are going to be made. But Heartland will address it if you own the property. It's just that the power generation excludes, I mean, it's excluded specifically. And again, we had that conversation many times over the year, but I think it's a good question to ask, how he's coming with getting that covered.
I'll find that out. Yeah.
But the way you said that now, it sounds as if we do have liability. If there's some kids on top of the dam and they fall in the water, do we have liability for that?
I believe Heartland would address it,
Okay.
but I can't, one thing we are not comfortable is made up claim situations, because you never know what.
Well, I realize that, but I just, at first you said we don't have liability, and I'm like, well, what happened? Yeah, so I want to know, kind of.
Yeah, so there's the coverage you have for the property you own, there's the liability that's based upon, or allegations based upon that power generation. Those are two different things.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, and then if there were any, any type of situation, then a claim can be submitted and then to the TPA, the third party administrator who handles the claim, which is Creative Risk Solutions. And then they can make the determination on, is this a compensable claim or not?
Okay.
But it's covered, right? I mean, I think what Jim's asking is, I think kind of like, and I don't mean to butt in here, but it's like I'm a property owner, right? And I have property insurance and I have liability insurance. So I might go to my insurance agent and I say, okay, look, if some kid falls on my sidewalk here and somebody determines it's my fault, I got insurance coverage, right? And I like them to say, yeah, you got coverage for that. Now I realize there are times when that might happen when my insurance wouldn't pay. For example, let's say I was a real moron and mean guy and I went out and started digging holes and then covered them up and trapping kids to come fall, like an intentional thing, that probably wouldn't be covered. But
Coverage will be addressed, yes, is the way, we can't say what claim's gonna be covered and what, not because, you have to determine liability. I mean, are you even at all?
Sure. Right. But, I guess I'm not gonna, but I prefer in my own personal business, my own private practice in hospital county, if I go to an insurance agent and I say, look, I want coverage for this.
Right.
And I want to know that you've done what you can to provide coverage. And if somebody can't say that, I get a little nervous.
I mean, so.
Well, Heartland is an extremely broadly written document. I mean, it is broad as it can get for public entities. We call it a homegrown document because we try to address as many things as we can. But for anybody to say that insurance is going to cover every issue, if somebody tells you it will, I wouldn't believe them.
Well, no, I don't say that. I
If it
just,
happens on Heartland property,
if I go to, like I said, if I go to my insurance agent and say, look, I want liability coverage on my home, I like them to say, you got it. I get a little nervous if they say, well, it depends.
Well, the coverage is in place. It just depends, each claim situation is
I
different.
work with insurance a lot. I'm very familiar with it. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah.
Because I know the dance that people do. So, I mean, I think I understand what you're saying. It's like the coverage is there.
Right, so but if it's not your fault, if whatever happens is not you didn't create the liability,
Sure.
then we'll defend.
Going to say you have duty.
Yeah, you'll defend that. We'll defend that. We're not gonna have you pay claims
Right.
on liability that you don't owe. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
gonna be defended, so.
understand you are a part owner of Heartland. Heartland's not just some insurance company that sits over here.
I understand that, but I'm not trying to be critical. Like I said, I have and do a lot of insurance law, and these are just things that come up and I just like to address. So
No, I wanted to hear that conversation because when we first talked about the generation of parts of it were not going to be covered. I want to hear that, yeah, there's going to be liability coverage if we're not at fault at something, and then I realize what you're saying, but I want that to be clarified.
Does that make that clear? I mean, does
Yep.
that help? I guess.
Make it clear to you guys, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you talk about that lawsuit that Carl was talking about? With the Fayette County, the two ladies that drowned?
Yeah, there's a pending lawsuit where there's been an issue where a couple people drowned, but the question is, so we're defending that. Now, I mean, so, and it was against the conservation, so is conservation liable? That's what we're gonna argue, no, that is not. But we're defending that claim. We're handling it as a claim under that liability. Is that what you're kind of wondering?
If there's a judgment, you'll pay.
But the family's suing them.
I think that's real.
Yeah, if we're not able to do it.
But that's a little bit different. The dam is owned by the city. The conservation works with the DNR on the river trails. And so conservation is responsible for the signage. So that's where the question comes up, was the signage correct? Was there enough signage? Was there enough warning for these women? It had flooded a lot before this happened. So that doesn't have anything to do with power generation. It has to do with, did these ladies make the right decision by jumping in the water when the water's high?
When it's been flooding.
And using the right grass. And so it's much different than.
There's more issues involved for that.
Yes, and like I said, I think, the real question people have is like, yeah, you always have, if somebody sues me, I want to be able to say, well, it really isn't my fault. But if somebody says it is my fault, then I need to know that.
And yeah, it's not coming back from you first. All right, is that?
Any other questions?
All right, well, that was my first time, so hopefully it's just gonna get better every time, so.
Good. I think that was good.
Good.
All right, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I gave the authorization to bind to Mark, so I don't know if you guys want to sign that now, or if you, just as long as I get it by July 1st. So I don't know if you'll sign it now, and you can have Rachel send it to me if you, or if you want to give it to me now, it's whatever you'd like to do.
Your choice.
My choice. Well, yes.
I got one question. Mark, when you went around, you resolved a price for the insurable replacement costs for the St. Ansgar shop. I see here it's 0 on this sheet, and that just kind of like,
I think we just
whoa.
updated that this last year.
I think that's been on there because of Gallagher Bassett. We had an issue with that, with the old one that didn't come off, and then there's the new one that's a lot bigger.
Okay, so that building has the new building has a price for a value, and it is insured then. Okay,
Yes, because the old one came off,
okay.
and that's one they had reviewed like 10 years ago.
I see these 2 zeros on here, and I'm like,
No worries.
oh, it's good to know it's worth a little more than that.
We did the building and the fuel tanks too. Fuel tanks on there for St. Ansgar Shops, new fuel tanks.
Let's see
Any
anything.
question on that last one?
Yeah.
I thought we had everything insured.
It was on, it's on there.
And then, yeah, when we're done with that, we need a motion and a second to approve the Heartland insurance.
We'll make a motion to go to the insurance premium.
Mark has made a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Need to second it. Any further discussion other than the fuel tanks?
St. Ansgar Shop, 454,000, and the fuel tanks, 25,000.
Thank you.
Contents, sir, salt and fuel tank.
Roll call, Jim,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Todd.
Aye. Okay. Sounds good. The only thing we probably want to watch in the future is the cost limit. Down the road. Maybe you might want to increase that. It has been a big discussion in the last couple of renewals.
Yeah, as far as the Heartland people, you guys are the low one.
Yeah.
But we also realize it's not cheap to increase that. And that's money that goes straight to the reinsurer. So understand that, but I would continue to give it some thought, see how it fits into your budget.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we're down to adjourning the meeting. Have a motion and a second. Adjourn, move to adjourn. He's made a motion. Yes, I will second that. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.